All right, I would like to introduce our guest speaker. I know a lot of you have been waiting for this. So our guest speaker this year, for the first time ever at IC Hack, is Peyton Jones. He's the leading computer science researcher at Epic Games. He's the lead designer of the widely used Haskell programming language, as well as GHC, which a lot of Imperial students will have used because we teach it as the default programming language in first year. He's also a fellow of the Royal Society, which is really, really cool. And the chair of computing at school and the National Center for Computing Education. So without further ado, please welcome Simon. You might want to...
Okay, see if we can make that one work. Well, good afternoon, IC Hack. Congratulations on making it so far. I think most of you have been awake for more than 24 hours, so I regard my primary goal as simply to keep you awake for another 15 minutes. And I want to do that. Can I have a slide? Yeah, that'd be great. I would like you to think about aha moments. Those moments. Do you remember when suddenly something happened that made you think, aha, that is what is cool about computer science, right? There have been moments. I'm going to just tell you about a couple of those moments for me, because they're the things that sort of inspire us in a way that to make us and turn us into the people that we are. But I'd like you to think about what those moments were for you. So here is a couple for me. This is me aged, I think about 8, maybe. I think I was a little bit older than 8 when my school teacher gave me this problem. He said, a man goes to a bank teller who's dealing with an irate customer who comes in every day and demands a sum of money in pounds between £1 and £1,000. And the teller thinks, well, I need to serve him quickly, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some money in envelopes and have them ready to flick across the counter. So 10 envelopes, my teacher said to me. What does he put in the 10 envelopes? Okay, so binary, look at that, right. See, a very smart audience here. So yes, so I thought, oh, well, he better have one with £1, right? And then £2 is a possibility, better have one with £2. That deals with 3, so now I need one with £4, and that would deal with 5 and 6 and 7. So now we need one with 8. And before I knew it, my teacher had taught me the binary number system without ever saying the word base 2 or binary, just talking to me about bank tellers. I thought that was a really good piece of pedagogy, because here I am, 55 years later, and I still remember that occasion, right? And I bet that each of you has stories like that. So think about them, because I'm going to tell you one more. So this one was a little bit later in my life. I'd started to write programs by now, and I like writing programs to play games. So this game is called NIM. Have you all come across NIM, most of you? Any of you? You don't look. It's maybe just some of you, right? So the game is you have some piles of matchsticks, right? Maybe 3, maybe 5, some piles of matchsticks. And in any one move, you can take any number of matches from any one pile, but only one pile. And the goal is to take the last match. That is to take all of the last remaining pile, which you could do, okay? Now, if you were writing a computer program to play one side of the game, which is kind of what I was into in those days, right? What would you do? So I'm going to help you. I'm going to jump to the answer, because maybe some of you know it's quite hard to work out, actually, but it's very beautiful, and it's just this. Imagine you encode the number of matches in each pile in binary, and then you just line them up and take the XOR of the columns, right? Take the exclusive OR of the columns. So here I've got pile with 5, pile with 9, pile with 2. Write out in binary, take vertical exclusive OR. Now, your goal is going to be to make the line at the bottom all zeros, right? So if it starts non-zero, there has to be a most significant 1, right? And therefore, there must be one pile that has a 1 in that bit. So if I make that 1 into a 0, now I can do anything with the remaining bits of that pile, because I've removed 2 to the end, so I can do anything with the remaining bits, in order to make all the other ones in 0. And there you have it, right? Isn't that beautifully simple and easy? And I thought, it's like suddenly you see the way that something completely non-obvious in which a sort of computational solution can just crack the whole thing once and for all, and you have a winning strategy. But you'd kind of never really have thought of it, or at least I wouldn't have thought of it. So I thought that was very cool. Very cool. So now, what about your aha moments, right? So just talk to your neighbor for 30 seconds and tell them about an aha moment that you've had somewhere in your subject where you thought, that was a moment at which computer science turned out to be cool. Go on, 30 seconds. Do it now. I know you're sleepy. Okay. Okay, aha. Say aha together. Aha. Oh, very good. Thank you. Now, is anybody brave enough just to share a little aha moment? Just that you've been sharing with each other. Could you share it with somebody else? Oh dear, and I've kicked over the lights. Ow. Kicked over the lights. Oh, crumbs. An aha moment? Yeah, go on.
Most recent one.
The microphone working?
Microphone doesn't work. That's fine.
I was
Most recent
promised.
one, for ages, I was trying to debug something that just turned out to be trying to access a final object in a sub-process, but it was declared in the parent process. Yeah,
Aha.
I figured that out. It was really
Okay, the child process, the parent process. Is this microphone working? Yes, it is working now. Anybody else? A quick aha? Oh, yes, thank you.
MATLAB is so much better at solving things than me, so I should just use it to solve everything and write things to solve everything.
Just use MATLAB to solve everything. Is that an aha? That's a sort of aha moment. Yeah. Bit of a depressing one in a way, isn't it? And nowadays, maybe ChatGPT, right? Okay, good. So I like to think about that sort of motivating moment in your lives, right? When you think that's why I'm here. So for me, it turned out to be, this idea of using computation as a way to solve problems beautifully and elegantly and once and for all, that really turned me on. I became an undergraduate at Cambridge in 1976, and at that stage, I started to learn about functional programming. So I was starting to think about what is computation. So I'd grown up on microprocessors when I was at school. The Intel 4004, the world's first microprocessor, was released in a way that an ordinary human being could buy one. It was a 4-bit microprocessor. We thought it was amazing. 8-bit microprocessors came out while I was at school. It was also amazing. So I was very much writing machine code, right? So here was I doing Euclid's algorithm, right? Then when I was at university, I learned functional programming and learned that you could write the very same algorithms in a purely functional style without having mutable references that you mutate all the time. And that led me, after a bit, to understand that, that when I look back into computer science history, we had this guy, Alan Turing, who invented the Turing machine, very much like a microprocessor, step at a time, modify the tape. But at the very same time, Alonzo Church, who was at Princeton at the same time as Turing. In fact, Alonzo Church was Turing's supervisor. Did you know that? And they both wrote papers about their models of computation at very similar times, like the late 20s, early 30s. So Alonzo Church wrote his paper about lambda calculus, right? And it turns out then that Turing machines can do things, lambda calculus can do things, and both of them have a claim to be what you might say, this is what it means for something to be computable. But the aha moment was, whoa, it's the same thing. Right? You can make a lambda term that encodes a Turing machine or a Turing machine that encodes a lambda term. They're equally expressive. That's very non-obvious. Right? We take it for granted now because it was sort of, they figured it out in the 1930s. But I'd like you to just think how amazing that is, that these two very, very different models of computation turn out to be exactly equally expressive. And then, of course, they led to two different ways of thinking about the entire enterprise of programming. There's mainstream languages on the left and functional programming languages on the right. And in fact, as it turned out then, This rather slow dawning aha moment for me when I was at university was functional programming is, the story arc of my professional life, in effect. I worked for a small time for an electronics company, then I went to join UCL as a lecturer, went to Glasgow as a professor, and all this time I was essentially taking this single idea of purely functional programming and saying, how can we knock down the obstacles that make that beautiful, elegant idea into a practical reality? What stops it being a practical reality? And that turned into Haskell as a sort of substrate for all of that. Have you heard of Haskell? Oh, good, yeah, just checking, right. And then Microsoft research for a bit, I've ended up at Epic Games, where we're working on another declarative programming language. Actually, it's a functional logic language, not just a functional language. So, but the thing I'd like to convey to you is that for me, this single unifying idea that immutability changes everything, that has been the story of my professional life. That's, by the way, a brilliant title of a paper by Pat Helland. The paper is quite good. It's not really good, but the title is brilliant. It is the best title I have ever seen of a paper. Okay, so I was totally hooked. So here we are. We are fortunate enough to be able to do things that we think are enormous fun, right, and inspiring, and indeed. I found this quote by Fred Brooks, who wrote this book called The Mythical Man Month. This is a book that, who's actually read The Mythical Man Month? You probably heard of it. Who's read it? Only a couple. Look, guys, you have to read The Mythical Man Month. It's quite a short book. It's very readable. And Fred Brooks is a almost poetic author. He's a really good writer. So you will not regret reading this book. But this is what Fred had to say. He said, the programmer, like the poet, works only slightly removed from pure thought stuff. She builds her castles in the air from air by creating by exertion of the imagination. Few media of creation are so flexible, so easy to polish, so readily capable of realizing grand conceptual structures. See what I mean about him being a poet, right? I found that, so that's, I feel incredibly fortunate to be somebody whose day job is to work with that medium. So, here we are then. I want to sort of move to where we are. We are, lucky us, at the top of this pyramid, right? You are the brains right up here, right? I'm sorry to say, you just are the geeks, the nerds of the future. It won't be long before you're all running the country, right? But what did it take to make us be the people who are, do something that is very valuable to the world, that other people respect, and that is highly paid? Is it because we deserve it? Not really, right? It's because we got lucky. Right? We got lucky. I feel incredibly fortunate that I just happen to be interested in computer science and that people are willing to pay me ridiculous sums of money just to do things that I enjoy every day, right? What's not to like? So, now, what you should not do is feel guilty about this, right? You shouldn't feel guilty about being fortunate. And often people do feel a bit or they risk other people make them feel guilty, right? You're fortunate to be at the top of this pyramid, but you shouldn't feel guilty about it. You should feel joyful about it, but also generous about it. And so that's the bit that I want to finish with is a bit, what might you do with your good fortune, apart from have a whale of a time, right? And I want to give you 3 concrete things you could do, right? 3. And these are all actionable things. Here we are. Number 1, be involved in the debate about what our technology, the technology we spend our time developing, does to society. Number 2, be involved in our children's education, especially in computing. And number 3, give away a lot of money. Right? I'm going to say a little bit more about each of those. But the thing I really want you to remember for today is, you remember nothing else, is please do something, right? Rejoice in your good fortune, but don't just sit on your yacht, right? All of us have a role to play. So, number 1, be the human face of tech, right? So, AI is hot at the moment. It's all over the news, right? Is it a risk to societies? Is it going to take everybody's jobs? And it's a serious question, right? And the people in this room are better equipped to help everybody else make well-informed choices than anybody else is, right? The danger is that our politicians or, that our leaders, essentially, will make ill-informed choices because they don't understand the technology very well. You guys, all of us, we understand the technology much better. What we must not do is sit in our white coats and say, I'm sure the Prime Minister will do the right thing, right? Now, the trouble is that we all feel powerless, don't we? I'm a mere worm. How could I possibly influence what actually happens in the world? Well, the fact is that each of us individually are a bit worm-like, but together we're a hugely powerful force. And like it or not, you will be running the country, right? Maybe not, by being Prime Minister. You will be senior in companies or in influential positions of one way or another. You will be important. So I just want you to think that big trees start from little acorns. Heavy doors swing on little hinges, right? And you are one of those little acorns or hinges. And don't wash your hands of it on the grounds that you're powerless. You are not powerless. Okay, that's number one. So number two, as many of you know, as you mentioned earlier, I've been deeply involved in what our children learn about computing as part of their school education. I think this is important because school is something that every single child in the country does. There's lots of things that children can do in after-school clubs and things, but in school, every child does it. So it's a big lever on equity. And I think that computing and the computing industry and the stuff that we know and love so much is a ladder out of disadvantage as well. So I really want this to apply to all of our children. Right, so what does that mean? It means we need to have a decent curriculum, we need to have decent exams, we need to have well-trained teachers, and we need to have lots of people supporting education. So some of you, I hope, will become teachers, but the rest, I hope, will support education. Here are some concrete things you might do. You might join Computing at School, which is the group that I helped start, that tries to support teachers in being better computing teachers. Computing at School, CAS. You could become a STEM ambassador. You can do that today. That means you sign up to kind of visit schools occasionally and help them give talks, work with a teacher, but STEM ambassadors do help to link you up with schools to do that. You could run a code club. I put the little logo here for code club somewhere. Or you could join First Tech Challenge, which is a sort of robot-based initiative. There are a lot of these things, but and you just got to decide, I'm going to do something. I'm not going to do nothing. I'm going to do something. And almost wherever you start, you'll find it will lead you into something else. I would talk to some of your colleagues, undergraduates here at Imperial, who are doing the module on teaching in schools. What's it called? It's called something. Anyway, I talked to several of you who did that. It sounded amazing, right? So the rest of you, do that module. You have to get interviewed to do it. It's competitive to get in, but really good. Okay, so do something. So that's two. Get involved in the conversation about tech. Get involved in somehow helping our children to have a better education because you're well equipped to do that. And the third thing is give lots of money away. So now what do I mean by this? Well, I remember the first day somebody paid me a salary. Up to then, in my entire life, I'd been paying other people for things like education, right? And now suddenly somebody was paying me to do something that I loved. That was an amazing day. And it wasn't very much money. I think my starting salary was £14,000. But it was a huge thrill. So here's what I want to suggest that you do. From the moment that you start to earn, open a Charities Aid Foundation account and put 10% of your pre-tax salary into it, and do that for the rest of your life. Now, if you do that, you will never notice, right? You will never be materially less happy because you earn 10% less across your entire lifespan than if you earned 10% more. That will not materially change your happiness, but it will make a material change to your happiness actually for the better, because you'll find that you have tons of money to give away, and you'll improve a lot of other people's lives. So I want to give you a practical suggestion for this, which is the following. Here's what usually happens. Your employer pays you, or in this case me, and put money in my bank account, and then I give money away to good causes. And each of those occasions is a painful one. Oh, somebody comes to the door. Oh, save the children. Shall I give some money? £10, £20. That feels like quite a lot, right? But so each occasion is a bit painful. And if I don't do anything, right, if nobody comes to the door for a bit, the result is I don't give any money away, right? So here's a better plan. much better plan that I've been doing for the last 40 years and that I strongly endorse with you. Open an account with the Charities Aid Foundation. So I have no connection with CAF. I've had an account with them for 40 years. I have no other connection with them. They're kind of like a bank, except that the bank account you have with them, once you put money into it, the only way to give money out is to give it to a charity. Well, it's just like a ratchet. So you just arrange a standing order from your bank account, or ideally from your employer, straight into your CAF account. And once it's in your CAF account, all you can do with it is give it away. So when somebody asks you for money, it's like pure joy, because you can say, money has accumulated here. You know, actually, since I last looked at it, it's got quite a lot. And all I could do with it is give it to you. It's just joyful. So you go from pain to joy. What's not to like about that? Right? There is one moment of pain at which you have to decide, in the entire year, how much do I want to give away? So, 10% of your salary, make it 20% if you like. Just do something static and leave it there. But if you do nothing else, it'll just accumulate, and then you can give it away. So, but you've got to do this from day one, right? The moment you get used to earning your full salary, right, it becomes painful again. You've got to do it the day that somebody starts to pay you. All right, so I'm sorry to be didactic about this. I'm very, very prescriptive, but I really think this will make a big difference. If you do this, then for the rest of your life, you will be somebody who's given away millions of pounds in their life. And that is quite a substantial thing to do in your life. If all of the people at this hackathon, all 700 people, was to do that, that would be, a force of nature, right? That would be really big. So think about it. So here's, I'm done, right? So here we are, 3 things. Look, we're fortunate. And so we shouldn't feel guilty about that. We should feel joyful about it. But we feel joyful with a sense of responsibility. We are more powerful than we think. We really can make a difference, both individually and together. And I've given you sort of 3 tangible, concrete, actionable things that you could do and that I hope that some of you will choose to do. Thank you very much. Thank you.